Eat, Bumpy said, pushing the plate of ribs across the table. The 10th of June, 1963, Small's Paradise. The restaurant was packed, but everyone knew what was happening at table 7. The man sitting across from Bumpy was shaking so bad he could barely hold his fork. He was the one who told the Italians where Bumpy's cash houses were, who'd helped Genovese move into Harlem, who'd gotten rich while Bumpy counted days in Alcatraz. "I said eat," Bumpy repeated. And this time his hand moved to his waistband. "Because this is your last meal." Marcus's Smooth Henderson had been running Harlem like he owned it for 11 years. Every Tuesday and Friday night, he held court at Small's Paradise on 135th and 7th Avenue, the crown jewel of black nightlife in 1963. Smooth sat at table 7 in the back corner, surrounded by his crew, drinking French cognac and eating the best ribs in New York City. He wore Italian suits that cost $400, drove a midnight blue Cadillac Eldorado, had a penthouse apartment in Mount Morris Park with a view of Central Park. He had 40 men on his payroll, 5 policy banks running numbers across Harlem, and the Genovese family's blessing to operate as long as he paid his weekly tribute. Smooth had built all of this on the foundation Bumpy Johnson left behind. The connections, the infrastructure, the respect. He'd taken everything Bumpy created and claimed it as his own. And for 11 years, while Bumpy rotted in Alcatraz, Smooth had slept peacefully. Until the 7th of June, 1963, that was the day Bumpy walked out of Alcatraz, carrying everything he owned in a paper bag. 56 years old, gray in his hair now. 11 years older, but his eyes, those eyes still had that cold, calculating stillness that made strong men nervous. Bumpy didn't go home when he arrived in New York, didn't embrace his wife, didn't stop to rest after the 3-day train ride from San Francisco. He went straight to Junie Bird's apartment on 145th Street. Junie was waiting, 63 now, gray, haired, but loyal to his last breath. "Give me names," Bumpy said, not even sitting down. Junie had a list ready. He'd spent 11 years watching, listening, keeping track. He rattled off 15 names, men who'd gotten rich while Bumpy was locked away, men who'd carved up his territory like he was never coming back. But one name made Bumpy's jaw tighten: Marcus Henderson. Smooth had been Bumpy's prat feu, a sharp young hustler from 118th Street that Bumpy had taken under his wing in 1947. Bumpy taught him the numbers game, showed him how to run policy banks, introduced him to the right people, protected him when Dutch Schultz's old crew came for revenge. When Bumpy got arrested in 1952 for conspiracy, he trusted Smooth to hold things together, take care of the organization, send money to his wife. For 2 years, Smooth did exactly that. Then the money stopped, the letters stopped, and according to Junie, Smooth had made a deal with Vito Genovese. He'd given up the locations of Bumpy's policy banks, told them which cops were on Bumpy's payroll, revealed where the cash houses were, and in exchange, the Italians let Smooth keep 125th Street for himself. Bumpy had spent 11 years in Alcatraz thinking about that betrayal. 11 years planning what came next. "Where does he eat?" Bumpy asked. "Small's Paradise," Junie said. "Every Friday night. Table 7 shows up at 9 o'clock like clockwork." Bumpy looked at his watch. It was Friday, 6 p.m. "Get me a table right next to his." At 8:45 p.m., Small's Paradise was filling up. The weekend crowd was arriving. Hustlers, musicians, working folks spending their paychecks on good food and cold beer. The 3-piece jazz combo was warming up in the corner. Bumpy Johnson walked in at 8:50 p.m. He was wearing the same suit he'd worn on the train from California, a charcoal gray number that had seen better days. His shoes were scuffed. He carried no weapon that anyone could see. He looked like a ghost, like something from Harlem's past walking into its present. The restaurant didn't go silent, but conversations shifted. Eyes tracked him as he moved through the crowd. Old-timers recognized him immediately. Younger hustlers who'd only heard the stories whispered to each other, "That is Bumpy Johnson. I thought he was dead. Man got out of Alcatraz 3 days ago." Bumpy walked straight to table 8, right next to table 7. Junie Bird was already sitting there along with Willie, Fishes, Jackson and Raymond Quick Lewis. 3 old-timers who'd stayed loyal. 3 men who remembered what Harlem was like when Bumpy ran it. At exactly 9 p.m., Marcus Smooth Henderson walked in. Smooth was 38 now, dressed in a cream-colored suit with a burgundy tie, diamond rings on 3 fingers, gold watch. He had 4 men with him, bodyguards who looked like they'd never missed a meal. Smooth's crew headed for table 7. That is when Smooth saw Bumpy. He stopped mid-step. The blood drained from his face. His bodyguards noticed the change and followed his gaze. When they saw Bumpy Johnson sitting there, calm as Sunday morning, their hands moved toward their waistbands. Bumpy didn't move, didn't react, just looked at Smooth with those cold, empty eyes. "Marcus," Bumpy said quietly, his voice carried across the restaurant. "Come sit with me." It wasn't a request. Smooth's bodyguards tensed. One of them, a thick-necked enforcer named Leon, stepped forward. "Mr. Henderson, don't take meetings without." Junie Bird stood up. He was 63 and looked harmless, but the .45 automatic in his hand looked very serious. The man said, "Sit down," Junie said softly. Suddenly, guns were everywhere. Smooth's 4 bodyguards had their hands inside their jackets. Junie had his .45. Willie Jackson produced a sawed-off shotgun from under the table. Quick Lewis had a revolver pointed at Leon's chest. The restaurant froze. The jazz combo stopped playing. Waiters backed toward the kitchen. Customers dove under tables, but Bumpy Johnson didn't even blink. "Tell your boys to go home, Marcus," Bumpy said. "This conversation is between you and me." Smooth's mouth opened and closed like a fish. His hands were shaking. He looked at his bodyguards, looked at the guns, looked at Bumpy's calm, terrifying face. "Go," Smooth whispered to his crew. The bodyguards backed toward the door, hands still on their weapons, eyes locked on Junie's .45. They didn't want to leave, but they also didn't want to die in Small's paradise on a Friday night. When they were gone, Bumpy gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Sit." Marcus Henderson sat. Bumpy signaled a waiter. The young man approached nervously, avoiding eye contact. "Bring us a plate of ribs," Bumpy said. "The good ones. And 2 glasses of bourbon." The waiter practically ran to the kitchen. The restaurant was dead silent now. 250 people frozen in place, watching table 8 like it was a stage. Even the kitchen staff had stopped cooking. Everyone knew what was happening. Everyone knew this was history. The food arrived. The waiter set down a full plate of ribs, still steaming, glazed with sauce, 2 glasses of bourbon. Then he disappeared. Bumpy pushed the plate toward Smooth. "Eat," he said. Smooth stared at the ribs like they were poisoned. "I am not hungry, Bumpy. Listen, I can explain." "Eat," Bumpy repeated, "because this is your last meal." That is when Smooth understood. This wasn't a negotiation. This wasn't a conversation. This was an execution with an audience. "Bumpy, please." Smooth's voice cracked. "I had to survive. You were gone. The Italians were taking everything. I made a deal to save the organization." "You made a deal to save yourself," Bumpy said quietly. "You gave them my policy banks, my collectors, my roots. You told Genovese everything, and then you kept the money that should have gone to my wife." Tears were running down Smooth's face now. "I was going to make it right. I swear I was waiting for you to come home. I've been home for 3 days, Marcus. You didn't come see me, didn't send word, didn't send money to May to make up for 11 years of nothing." Bumpy leaned forward. "You thought I was never coming back. Thought you'd gotten away with it. Please, Bumpy, I'll give it all back. The money, the territory, everything." "I don't want it back from you," Bumpy said. "I am taking it back from you. There is a difference." Bumpy's hand moved to his waistband, but Bumpy didn't pull a gun. He pulled out a straight razor, the same razor he'd carried since 1935, the same one that had opened Dutch Schultz's enforcer from ear to ear in a Bronx warehouse, the same blade that had convinced Lucky Luciano to let Bumpy operate independently in Harlem. Bumpy unfolded the razor slowly. The steel caught the light. "You know what the Romans used to do to traitors?" Bumpy asked conversationally. They'd make them eat their last meal. Then they'd execute them in public. Let everyone see what happens when you betray your emperor. Smooth was hyperventilating now, eyes locked on the razor. I am not a Roman emperor, Bumpy continued, but I am Harlem, and everyone in this restaurant needs to understand something. He raised his voice so every person in Small's Paradise could hear. When I went to Alcatraz, some of you forgot who built this, forgot whose streets these are, forgot that respect isn't something you take, it is something you earn. He looked directly at Smooth. Marcus Henderson forgot. So now Marcus Henderson is going to help me remind everyone. Bumpy stood up. Smooth tried to bolt, but Junie was behind him in a second, gun pressed against his spine. Stand up, Bumpy ordered. Smooth stood, legs shaking so badly he could barely support himself. Bumpy walked around the table until he was face to face with the man who'd betrayed him. Then, with the entire restaurant watching, Bumpy raised the razor to Smooth's throat. Not to kill, to mark. In one quick motion, Bumpy cut a thin line across Smooth's left cheek, not deep, just enough to scar, just enough to make sure every person in Harlem would know Marcus Henderson as the man who betrayed Bumpy Johnson. Smooth screamed. Blood ran down his face, staining his cream-colored suit. That is so you remember, Bumpy said quietly. Every time you look in a mirror, you'll see that scar, and every person who sees you will know what you did. Bumpy folded the razor and put it back in his pocket. You've got 24 hours to leave Harlem, Bumpy said. Take whatever you can carry. Leave the rest. If I see you after tomorrow night, I won't be this generous. He turned to address the entire restaurant. The rest of you, Bumpy Johnson, is back. The rules are the same as they always were. Pay what you owe. Keep your word. Protect your people. Anyone who wants to test me, you know where to find me. Bumpy Johnson walked out of Small's Paradise at 9:47 p.m. on the 10th of June, 1963. He left Marcus Henderson bleeding at table 7, left 250 witnesses who would spread the story across Harlem by morning. By sunrise, every hustler, policy banker, and street soldier in Harlem knew the king was back. Marcus Smooth Henderson was on a bus to Philadelphia by noon. He never returned. Within 72 hours, 3 other men who'd carved up Bumpy's territory quietly disappeared from Harlem. Not killed, just gone. The Genovese family, who'd moved into Harlem while Bumpy was locked up, sent a captain to negotiate. The meeting lasted 4 minutes. Bumpy's terms were simple. You've got 2 weeks to pull out of Harlem. Everything north of 110th Street is mine again, non-negotiable. Within 6 months, every piece of Bumpy's empire was back under his control, not through war, not through bloodshed, through fear, respect, and calculated power. The night at Small's Paradise became Harlem legend. You can lock a man up for 11 years. You can steal his money, take his territory, turn his people against him, but you can't take his throne. Not if he is a real king,